attention to electricity provision, and we have with us in the studios Charles Olufemi, who is the chairman, Young Nigerian Professionals Forum, and Dr. Sam Amadi, former chairman of the National Electricity Regulatory Commission, is also here with us in the studio. Gentlemen, you're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you. Good morning.
So 7,000 megawatts by 2021, and I think 11,000 by 2023. Is this a feasible challenge from what you can see? Let's start with you, Dr. Amadi.
I don't like to, the targets, I think it's like counting beans, really. 7,000, 11,000. They are feasible. It depends on the condition on the ground. In 2000, when we started the reform, there was the idea of 40,000 megawatts by 2020. And then we've been shifting from then. We've not even got close. So it can do even 20,000 by 2023. It's possible. We've seen Egypt put in 10,000 megawatts in 3 years' time. So it's doable. But the question is, I think we shouldn't be looking at these targets. They don't really make sense to me. We should be looking at structural changes. Are we really getting there? Yes, we should be doing more than that, really. It's actually a very, very conservative estimate. The government, when it started in 2015, started with what they call incremental power. So they have been very, very conservative in certain benchmarks, which might be politically good because it don't get to expose yourself much. But essentially, I think two things. This target setting, without dealing with the structural changes that are required, could, at the end of the day, even as conservative, as low, very low as these figures are, we may not still get there. And second, even if we get there, that does not really get us much far into where we're supposed to be.
But, you know, targets are good and targets are necessary, especially when you're signing deals. People have to have an idea of what exactly these deals are about.
Well, yeah, if it's the target between you and Siemens, this is what you should do. That's really good, but that's not the target for the industry. Don't forget that this deal with Siemens, we've not bundled the sector and thrown to Siemens. Siemens has a strategic partnership to deliver some product, namely O&M. They're going to supply equipment, perhaps financing, perhaps some kind of technical support. We had that with GE, don't forget, under Jonathan, where we signed in London with much fanfare. And GE has also, by the way, Siemens is not new to this sector. They have been providing capacity, equipment, and other kind of support to some of the Gencos right now. So this is a good idea to have this kind of MOU. But the point I make is that, look, the devil is in the details. It scopes a pattern of work. It works, but the real thing about the sector generally is not that commitment to Siemens. So I expect that this is just one part of the bucket. The government is also thinking about a larger other areas, the existing capacities, ramping them up, recovering lost capacity. So basically we should be, if we work very hard, we could get up to more than 15,000 megawatts down the line.
Let me get your first assessment of what has just gone on.
About the power sector?
About the power sector and also the deal that's just been signed. Are you optimistic about it?
Well, as I said, I wasn't I mean, I don't have the details of the deal that's been signed, but for us, we are concerned about all these deals that have been signed over the years. We have had, during the time of President Olusegun Obasanjo, $16 billion that was invested into power sectors. That is about, you know, the whole budget of Nigeria in a year. You've had also a lot of deals signed, just like you mentioned, during the former President Goodluck Jonathan, the former President Yar'Adua late, and the current administration has also invested huge amount of money in the power sector. But you agree with me, what Nigerians want to have is power. Nigerians basically are not interested in these deals and signing deals for years without power. And there's some things that are actually there. So we are concerned as Nigerians. A lot of us have businesses that are crawling because of power supply. Power is actually what affected both the rich and the poor in Nigeria. It affected both people from the north and the south. So people are not really interested in much of talking about the deals that have been signed, what the government is doing. If there's a problem with the policy, why are we having this problem? If there's a corruption that is happening in the power sector, let's expose it. And that is why we are calling, reminding the public about the motion moved by that honorable member in the House of Reps, which is a basic thing we talked about recently, Honorable Sada Soli, who moved the motion that there's a need for investigation, reinvestigation to the power sector. Either the continuity from where Tony Elumelu committee stopped, because there was that investigation in the House of Reps, it was all over the media, suddenly we didn't hear much about it. And people are talking that there are things happening in the power sector.
I don't think it's Tony Elumelu, it's Ndudi Elumelu.
Sorry, Ndudi Elumelu. Yeah. Sorry, Honorable Ndudi Elumelu. So basically, Nigerians want to see the power. We are not interested in all these things. We are not interested in what is happening, you know, what is actually causing the problem. So if there are issues, Nigerians want to know what are those issues. Nigerians are tired of the epileptic power supply and the imbecility in the power sector. And that is exactly what we are coming up to say. We want this investigation to be made public. We want to see what is happening there. We want people that are involved to be called to the table. I think there are possibly deliberate acts by people to hold us to ransom as a nation because of this power supply. Because powers affect every aspect of our economy.
I do know that when the Minister of Power works in housing, former Minister of Power works in housing, was being screened again by the Senate. One of the things that they wanted to know was, what exactly was going on in the power sector. And oftentimes, because it's one question the journalists have posed over and over again, he always says the sector has been privatized. And it's only a certain part of it that is still in the hands of government. Yes, government has shares in some of these privatized companies, but there are huge questions as to whether or not it's effective. This privatization has been effective so far. That question, remains some way. It seems that we're very reluctant to answer it. And he says that he doesn't think that there is much profit in going to go and deal or start, probing, so to speak, the privatization that has gone on in the past. It says we have to be careful. The message that we also send out to people who will intend to come into the sector in future. Do you agree with him on some of this point? Or do you think that, according to Charles, perhaps indeed we should do, maybe not a probe, maybe an overview of what it is that we've actually spent and where exactly the problem is with our power sector?
I think I agree with him partially, some part of it. I think Nigerians are also maybe overdramatic sometimes without doing the work. We have institutions, the Lumelus Committee, that was before we came to power, did this report. As usual, Nigerian legislative oversight work has been very haphazard, not thorough, rigor. I was special advisor there, so I can tell you there are very quality legislators, but the institution is incompetent bureaucracy to deal with inquiries. Overseas, you set up what we call commissions, bipartisan commission. You don't expect that the other members are those who have the skills to do this kind of intensive review. The fact that you're a senator does not make the forensic expert, a data analyst. What do you do? Stop saying our committee go and do problem inquiries. Set up commission, bipartisan. It doesn't mean a bureaucracy. Just 5-10 people are experts. Give them a charge, 3 months. Review what has gone. Now, look at issues around financing. Every time talk about people talk about money. How about policy? For the past 3 months, I've been raising issue that the privatization, which I was part of the government, was on a 40 model. Not that anybody stole the money. I said before that it was privatized in fairly transparent manner. The bidding was transparent. But the policy assumptions behind privatization, the reform, are 40. For the literature on reforms, we made a mistake. 3 things quickly. 1, look at Egypt. Egypt has not privatized. They are going through a reform. They ought to privatize in 2024, thereabout. They have sequenced their process in a way that they commercialize gradually. They provide subsidy for tariff hike that will be inevitable. They generate capacity through government-mandated production. So they have Siemens or somebody give them 10,000 megawatts. What I've argued is that in 2000, we started reform well, but the haste to privatize was wrong because you don't privatize when we are in acute capacity, scarcity. You don't privatize when the market is still risky. And the assumption that the private sector will come and start making investment is wrong. So if you ask me, the model was wrong, the implementation was wrong. It's not a case of corruption. Of course, there will be corruption. And those corruption should be handled by agencies. What is EFCC doing? ICPC.
You talk about...
Must there be a probe? What I'm saying is that they should go, if there's corruption, I like the sector. Yeah. And I would like to be probed, on air.
You talked about the assumptions that these companies will come, the private sector will come and make investments into the sector.
It's
now, some people said that assumption was expected and that even the private sector was not exactly, they were not saints in this matter. That they were also making assumptions of the sector as well.
Absolutely. Why I said the assumptions that, for example, when I was in NEC, NEPA, so-called, up to PSN, never had audited account until 2012 when I did one. They never knew their customer base number up to today. We did the first, Bamidele Turu, I appointed, did the first meter inquiry in the whole sector. We had 45% unmetered customer. They're on their loss level. They came and said, look, by the time we took over, we thought it was X. Well, you can't run electricity market, competitive, private, without data clarity. So essentially, what we should have done, in my view, was take 2000, reform, up to 2010, we have done to fully commercialize. Up to now, TCN has no board. TCN has no board. We just rushed to privatize. It was an ideology of neoliberal market fundamentalism. And then the problem is that the people who are coming can't attract funding. For example, they borrow money from the banks to buy the assets. So where would the money come from again? The banks are looking at the payment schedule. Customers are not paying because they're not receiving quality service. But if you had first grown capacity gradually, commercialize the entity, regulate them, you don't need to privatize. So my question is this. This is time now to do a thorough review. The National Electric Power Policy was 2000. All the assumptions, the world global economy has changed. The assumptions that fed into it have changed. This is time to do a forensic review of the policy framework before we go forward. This call for probe is scandals. You know, oh, I'm not against it. EFC should be probing every day. The records are there. Whoever is found, you know, you have Attorney General's probe, you have Accountant General, you have EFCC, you have government institutions. Let it do the probe. National Assembly should concern itself with policy oversight. When they was in government, they asked you to come and some might want to oversight. You know what that means? They say, go and bring oil ledger, payment ledger, and I'll come with 20 cartons of Ghana must go. Nobody will open it. The real work of National Assembly is policy oversight. How has NEC delivered regulation? I would like to be invited to a national probe to give account of the policies we made, why we made it, so that people will learn the failures. You see, reform is iterative. You build upon what you've done. You review what you have done. So this idea that, oh, what I say, we built on 40 model. People say, oh, Sam is saying that it was rigged, it was corrupt. No. I'm saying that we made fundamental mistakes of policy assumptions, of how the market will work. It doesn't work that way, and it's not working that way. This market, the private sector is not capable of this, as of today, to help us go to where we're going to. Government has support them, look for where they're going to get funding. Government has to socialize the risk, like NIPP, for example. If government was consistent in implementing NIPP, from 2005 to 2010, you're going to have 5,000 megawatts. 2010 to 2015, 10,000 megawatts. But what do? We cite the plants where there's no gas. We award contracts to people who never delivered for 4 years. So there's both a modeling and project management problem. Let's come to grip with it. And in my view, there are some reforms government should take before they go forward. Thankfully, by 21st, they have a new minister. The question with that minister is, what model are you going to run with? That's why I say I agree with Fashola in a sense, but I don't agree. We should never cancel the privatization, never. It creates a risk, big risk. But we should review it and ask ourselves, what regulatory and policy instrument can we use to deal with the obvious mistakes we've made? That's what we're doing now.
Now, as far as the concern which you share, I mean, which you have brought forward for that particular sector, and I'm sure a lot of Nigerians too are raising concerns, do you think that we have taken up the challenge of challenging even the regulator? Because we have now been told largely that whatever issues we have should be forwarded to the regulator. And he was saying that, you know, we're just content taking issues as they come. You know, the electricity is not working, or it's not working. Oh, I have not been metered, I have not been metered. We don't tend to challenge, you know, the regulator, if, you know, to see how it is that we can get some areas, because some people have taken up those challenges and it's beginning to work for them.
Well, that's fine. Actually, I want to say this. The doctor has actually mentioned more reasons why there should be proof than I even mentioned earlier. He has agreed that there are things that have gone wrong with the power sector. And like every other Nigerian, feel that what has gone wrong. Secondly, the only way I disagree with him, before I come to that, is when he mentioned that National Assembly should concentrate on policy probe. I disagree with that because the function of National Assembly itself, especially House of Reps, of course, and the Senate, is not only limited to policy. They are the one that made the appropriation into that power sector from the 1999 date. And their oversight functions is also required to ensure that the appropriation they made to that sector were properly handled and was not embezzled either by individual and organization. So they need to go beyond just policy probe. They need to also ask questions about the appropriation they have made into that sector. Secondly, the National Assembly are in charge of lawmaking, which also directly or indirectly affects, you know, the power sector. The power sector, the law that led us into privatization, were even made by the National Assembly. And they are following law if there has been violation of that law in any aspect of the power sector or not. So they have holistic work to do in ensuring that every parties into the power sector, either the private sector who are handling some part of the power sector, because we are aware the power sector was privatized, but not 100% privatized.
Did you get the point he made about the binational commission, about the fact that, members of the National Assembly might not be in themselves the ones to carry out such a probe, that they will have to empower those who have the technical know-how to do such a probe and even know where the skeletons might be buried, if indeed that's what we're looking for. Yeah. Otherwise, we should just focus on asking questions on why the sector is not working, or what policies we actually have in place right now.
The National Assembly has played a major role in even allowing us to know what has been happening in the power sector in the first place. I mentioned earlier, the committee set up by National Assembly that time, headed by Honorable Ndidi Elumelu, was the one that came up with what was happening. If you remember, as at that period in 2008, the then minister or the then DG of due process, Dr. Obiegele Sokwistele, was invited. The Minister of Finance at that time, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, was invited. And they made critical statements about the power sector. If you look at their statement, there are some of the things they exposed to us. There's some due process that were not followed in what they do in the power sector. We cannot jump guns. We cannot ignore the foundation of the problem.
So indeed,
we're talking about the building of the
we might
structure.
have a probe. I mean,
yes.
While the probe is going on,
yeah.
electricity is not going to be provided.
Yeah.
What we want at the end of the day is power.
Yes.
What a lot of Nigerians want is power that they have consumed, or power that they can consume, yes. and power that they are consuming and they are paying for. They don't want the one that comes to their house or does not come to their house and then they are being asked to pay for it. Now, for those kinds of everyday issues, yeah. Do you think, why do you think that a lot of Nigerians are reluctant to challenge the regulator to do more in terms of some issues that could be easily resolved? Because sometimes it's not like I said there's no meter or there's no pole or there's no wire in front of your house. Electricity has just gone, and there is no word from the people who are supposed to provide the electricity to you. It's total silence. Or maybe there's been a rainstorm, electricity goes, and nobody is actually having customer relationship. These are like everyday things that can be taken care of without any policy being put in place. And why are we reluctant to challenge the system?
And that is why we are asking questions. We are one of those Nigerians you are talking about, who faces all these things you are talking about.
Yeah, I'm asking why we are reluctant to ask questions of those of whom we should ask them, who we see every day.
Power sector is an organizing setting. And when it's an organized setting like that, an individual cannot take up the issue of power. It has happened in Nigeria, the crisis that's happened from individual challenging, those who are in charge of power. I've seen on a video online where somebody was actually dragging a ladder with someone who is trying to disconnect him or her. The point I'm making is this. If we want this thing to be challenged, that is why we elected our members, the National Assembly, the House of Rep member, to go and represent us. Where the people cannot speak for themselves, the National Assembly member has the right, by constitution, to speak for the people. They are speaking for the constituents. So all of these people you are talking about are members of one constituent or the other. So the point we are making is that we can't remove National Assembly from getting solution to the power. Let them do their own. Hand over anything that needs to be handed over to the anti-graft agencies. That will be done.
Are you saying that the people don't have any role to play? Is that what you're saying?
We are the people, and this is the role we have to play.
What is the role that we have to play?
Asking questions. It is high time that we must come up to ask questions of what is happening. I am one of the Nigerian people, and I'm telling you right now that we are asking questions about power.
Have you ever
speaking for those people who doesn't have opportunity
Indeed.
to be
I mean, we can ask questions at forums like this, and
yes.
It's extremely important that we do so.
Yes.
However, let me ask you personally,
right.
Have you had any cause to visit, say, the local NEPA office around you?
Severally.
And what has it been like dealing with them as a customer to,
let me give you an
provider?
Instance, practical instance. First, if you go to most of those, electricity distribution company offices now, the crowd you meet at the gate alone discourage you if you have some other thing to do in a day. Wow. First, you can apply for something. They will ask you to fill a form. You fill a form. You submit that form, you have to follow up that form almost on a daily basis if you want something to be done. And there's no assurance that that will be done. Those offices, as we speak, handle the public as if the public doesn't have rights to this power. You promise, metering communities, homes. You are asked to apply. You are asked to go online. You have to even write, fill a form. You have to submit those things. You do all these things and you don't get a result. What can an individual do in that aspect if we don't go into making the government that are representing the people to look into the problems and then solve it?
When you go to the offices, the distribution company offices, this is the situation that many Nigerians meet. What should they do?
Well, two things. First is the reform of the policy. which I think, like I said, the National Assembly and others can handle. There's also the problem of performance management. So even if we build on a good model, the discos may not be performing well. And that's the point he's making. And I agree with him that there's so many inefficiencies and all that. So work should be done. First is the NEC has forum offices across the disco. And the idea we set up forum offices was that we don't expect everybody to be going to the NEC office in Abuja. So in the disco service area, there will be office. It's like a judicial panel where we appointed civil society members, NMA, economists, manufacturers. They form a tribunal. So the idea that it can go there. So first, you have to petition right to your disco, go there and complain. Of course, all of them are not answer you. You go to the forum office. The forum office, like God, they can award judgment, and NEC has to implement it. But let me tell you what's the problem, big problem. When I was NEC, I discovered that what we call asymmetry of power, that consumers are disparate, there are too many, they are powerless. So you don't expect one consumer to fight a behemoth called the disco. So I made the first only effort in human history, I can recall, for a regulator to set up a consumer advocacy. I set up the consumer network, and I told them, I said, seek for funding, because you can't, as individual consumers, defend their interests. But if you come together, you create, apart from lobby, you create capacity for knowledge. So when we're doing tariff reviews, you hire experts. That's how it's done all over the world. But I, myself, it should be government who set it up. I set it up myself. Of course, Nigeria, typical Nigerians, they're quarrel over money. Give us money, give us money. They didn't drive it. That's the problem. It's not easy for one individual disco scattered all over the world to aggregate their crisis, their problem to a point in which the disco listens. And the regulator is like a judge. He doesn't jump into the fray all the time. So you need advocacy groups that are strong, who can aggregate these issues and go to regulator. Second point is that in other jurisdictions where there's very egregious failure of service quality, they can do class action and slam the disco operator with big, huge fine. That triggers internal regulation.
No, but interestingly, unlike the way NCC regulates the telecom sector, we don't see the NERC going round to even see just what level of service is being provided to consumers.
Because, too quick, that's a good point, but you know, we used to have our consumer assemblies then when I was there. I don't know what I do. I'm sure they're doing it now. But the thing is that electricity, or like telecom, is a little bit different. You know, don't forget that most telecom, for example, they can look at installations. And that's what they should be doing. But that's not even the reason why people don't complain about telecoms, that it's not essential service as much as electricity. So when it fails, you make a call, they overbill you. But this is very important. So NEC has to step up. They are doing well. But more than that, we need government as a policy to finance, not CPC. CPC is like a regulator itself. Consumer advocacy groups that will take up the challenge. That's the problem. But more important, let's deal with the modeling crisis. I've been saying that.
Do you think that could help?
Yeah, that will help in a way, but not enough. First, you know, this electricity thing, the power sector thing is broad, which you agree. First, you talk about generation, you talk about distribution, and you talk about regulation. So our own question, or what Nigerian wants to know, we have invested public funds in both generation and distribution. And of course, regulation is there. And transmission. So basically, we are asking questions. What has happened since 1999 to date? You agree there's a viral video going around where the former vice president mentioned very weighty allegation on previous administration. Said they have invested, that is former vice president Atiku Abubakar. The viral video said we invested money, you know, during the Obasanjo government. It went down the drain. During Jonathan, went down the drain.
The summary is, what has happened to all the monies that
what has happened to it?
Bring the probe now.
It's a valid question to ask. But we have to thank you, gentlemen, for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. Charles Olufemi is the chairman, Young Nigerians Professionals Forum, and Dr. Sam Amadi is a former chairman of the National Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. Well, that's it for Sunrise Daily this morning. Thank you for your questions, your comments, your contributions. We see all of them. Thank you so much for sending them. I'm Maokwe Ogunyuso.
I'm Kayode Okikiolu.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this program are those of the maker and do not reflect the views, opinions, and endorsement of Channels Television.